Welcome to Luxury Institute's podcast. I'm Milton Pedraza, Luxury Institute CEO.
And I'm Katie Sousa, Senior Consultant, Client Relationships and Projects. In today's podcast, Chapter 5 of our series, we are moving right along. Extraordinary Customer Experiences, or ECEs. We plan to discuss the differences between trust and loyalty. How do we build trust and loyalty? Can you have loyalty without trust? What is trust without loyalty? Today, we'll share many examples and stories of trust and loyalty in our everyday lives and how you create trust and loyalty through extraordinary customer experiences. Milton, go ahead and kick us off.
So, Katie, my friend Jamie Smith writes a newsletter, and he sent the newsletter, and in it was this article by Rachel Botsman, Why Loyalty and Trust Are Not the Same Thing. That was the title. And that really inspired me to think through the process and how it relates to extraordinary customer experiences. She cites an example about the supermarket. And to sort of summarize it, she talks about the fact that we may have a lot of trust for supermarkets, maybe a Publix in South Florida. We may interchange them, however, or we may go to other supermarkets, like a Stop and Shop if I were in the Northeast. Or the point is that they're interchangeable. They sell very much the same products. There really has to be a special reason for me to be loyal to a supermarket. And I know you have an example of that. So take it from here.
Certainly. I mean, I think of Trader Joe's immediately. When I lived in New York, when I lived in South Florida, the first thing I thought is, where's the Trader Joe's and what's the proximity to my home? Right? So Trader Joe's creates such a level of loyalty with their consumer base, not only because of, I would just say, the differences in products that they offer, but the experience that you get in the store. I have never, not once in all of the years I've been shopping there, ever had a bad experience. Not one. And if they don't have something that I, let's say, typically buy, they say, Katie, we'll have that on Wednesday. Come back, I'll hold something for you.
Katie, I'm not a Trader Joe guy, but I stopped at a Trader Joe's recently in Delray Beach, and the selection of wines was so phenomenal. I was struck by it. But they don't have a loyalty program like a lot of these, like Publix is like putting your phone number, Walgreens, like even when you buy wine or groceries, whatever, put in your phone number. But Trader Joe's doesn't have a loyalty program per se, a points program. So what is it that makes them earn such loyalty anyway?
While they might not have a quote unquote real loyalty program, they do have a loyalty program because of the product that they create. All of the Trader Joe's product is Trader Joe's, right? You go into a Publix, you go into a Wegmans, they are branded products within that store. Trader Joe's is the complete opposite. They create all of their products, so they have established trust with the customer that what they are providing is exceptional quality, etc. Now, will I say that there are certain things that I do go to Publix or Wegmans for? Yes, of course, because we all still like our own brands. However, the level of loyalty that Trader Joe's has been able to create in both larger cities and smaller suburban areas is outstanding. They are certainly, I would say, the pinnacle of the grocery stores that have created loyalty. But think about what you just mentioned about the loyalty programs offered by these grocery stores. What are they asking you for? Your data, your information. You are signing up for a loyalty program to get a benefit of a discount. Whereas Trader Joe's takes the approach of our price is what our price is. If you would like to shop here, we'd love to have you shop here. Everyone is on an equal playing field. I'm not going to collect your data to make you feel like you're getting a benefit.
So you just reminded me of Doc Searles, is a prolific individual who is in the privacy and personal data rights space. He's probably the father of that whole movement. He talked about Trader Joe's, and he said he was amazed that they don't want your data.
You don't.
They don't care about your data, so they protect your privacy inherently, and yet they're able to garner loyalty. So the fact that they're not gathering data is just another added trust element to what you already just described. So Pretty interesting. So let's talk a little bit about a category where there's trust, but loyalty is probably under duress. And I am talking about the banking system. So you know that very often when I go speak in front of large groups, I go, do you trust your bank to do a transaction, a deposit, a payment, a wire transfer? Raise your hand if you do, and 1,000 hands go up. And then I say very carefully, now listen very carefully. Do you trust your bank to serve, to protect, enhance, and promote your best interests? No hands go up, and then you get this little growing roar of laughter and absolute ridicule. Like, are you joking, Milton? Why would you even ask that question? Now, this is about your bank, right? What is a pillar of society. It's supposed to be one of the most trusted institutions. Now, we trust them to do the transactions, but many people say to me after I do that question, we're just tolerating that bad service.
Mm-hmm.
If the service is unbearable, Milton, then I would move. But right now, I'm giving them my loyalty because I really don't have no choice. It's very difficult to move banks and continue your life. It's just like it's habit, but it's also like the routine, the system, what everything is. So you tolerate bad service. But what I would say is that there's so many interesting examples that I can share. And so let's talk a little bit about this. You're a Wells Fargo customer. Wells Fargo has been fined over the years for creating false accounts,
Mm-hmm.
overcharging people on things that never happened. And most recently, I read that deposits were disappearing from the clients' accounts. And so tell me a little bit about your Wells Fargo experience. Obviously, there's a lot of empirical proof that they're not trustworthy. And yet people continue to be loyal, as I said, under duress because it's a hassle to move your account. So tell me a little bit about your experience there.
Now, I can't say that I've had any of those things happen to me personally, but I have also been a client since it was Wachovia.
Okay,
So
okay.
if
So
that
you
tells
had
you
to move.
anything,
You had to move with them.
yes, it is more of a hassle to leave and go to another bank than it is to just stick it out and keep an account there. What I have done though is open other accounts at other banks. So there are certain things that definitely make you just want to stay because it's easier than dealing with the hassle of closing and opening somewhere else. Just open somewhere else and then bank as you please.
So interestingly, I used to work at Citibank and I used to run CRM at Citibank. So I worked in Citibank Latin America and I ran the core banking section of the consumer bank. And so I know how the sausage is made, so to speak, right? And I, for 40 years, have trusted Citibank. I opened up an account when I was young and I stayed there. And my mother was a National Citibank customer. So the precursor of Citibank. And so I trust Citibank and I've been loyal to Citibank. And most of the time I've been happily loyal to Citibank. But I had an event happen to me when I sold my apartment in New York. A significant amount of money went into my deposit, into my checking account. That was the first time I had ever heard from Citibank in 40 years. Somebody literally called me up to say, Mr. Pedraza, congratulations. They didn't know what it was for on your deposit. Boy, do we have a great CD rate for you. And when I looked at the CD rate in comparison to other banks, it was low. So I felt like I was being taken advantage of, and I never took them up on it. So my level of trust actually went down because it was a much bigger thing in my life, and they were kind of not giving me an ideal rate, and certainly not a competitive rate. And they never called me for anything, so like I was suspicious. And so this is where I think where banks do not, where you don't keep a relationship, you don't build a relationship. And by the way, I had a good relationship with the branch manager at 57th Street because she always helped me with things like deposits or, big checks, etc. But somehow I just did not have the trust and that in that particular interaction, and it kind of lowered my perception. Even though I trust them, I'm loyal. I wouldn't say under duress, but that little shook my confidence in that bank a little bit. If we're talking about loyalty in the context of trust, I think that there are many different ways to have a combination of trust and loyalty, but the combinations are very dynamic and they mostly don't work with brands the way they should. And we're going to talk about how they should work.
Milton, even think about, Chase is a bank that obviously has done very well for itself. I'm also a Chase banker. I recently purchased a vehicle and did my financing through Chase. Needed to change a couple of things from a naming perspective, and I must have talked to over 20 people to try to get this done. I just simply say that story because thinking back to your Citibank example, do you think that it's the bank's fault, or do you think that it was the human being reaching out to you that created that, let's say, not so great taste in your mouth?
Well, it's very interesting you say that because you just identified a dynamic. Is it the brand and the rules and policies that they create that disempower the employees, the associates, to be their best and to deliver in your best interest? And or is it sometimes just the policies are good, but the employee doesn't make the effort to do it or to do it in a good way? And
Right.
that's a dynamic that I think that you have to align. No stupid rules and friction-free service and inspired people who are doing their best to serve your interests. And when it fails, and I think this is something that we know in luxury, the recovery has to be phenomenal. Now, I think banks very often take their clients for granted, unless, well, I wouldn't say even say unless, because I know many multimillionaires who are treated poorly by their bank, and the bank doesn't even know who they are. And
Correct.
so, I think banks in particular take their clients for granted. I would make that broad statement, and I would ask the banks to prove me wrong. Don't prove me wrong just on me or the billionaire. Prove me wrong on the average bank customer. So I think it's a huge opportunity in financial services. Now let's move into luxury. So I have a favorite men's clothing and accessory brand. Again, has been my favorite brand for decades. Ever since I could afford to buy the brand, which was probably in my 30s. And then I bought selectively, and over the years, as I was, rising up the ranks or getting more resources, I was able to be more loyal to them, buy their top of the line stuff. However, I stopped buying at their boutiques in New York, and I went to the department stores
Why?
because the service was just abominable. And I'll give you a concrete examples. I would receive spam emails all the time that were irrelevant to me. When I would go into the store, it took forever for me to get the attention of a sales associate because they were busy talking to each other. It wasn't like they were with other clients, and that annoyed me. Uh, and I found that the service in the department stores, in one particular department stores, I'll name it Saks, where I knew the people, they took the time to get to know me, the associates who represented that brand, and they did a phenomenal job. So they would call me to say, "We just got something in for you that I think will be a great fit in taste and in physical fit. I can have it ready for you." Or come in. There's no obligation. Just come take a look. That kind of show me you know me made me more loyal to buying that brand in a wholesale channel than
Hmm.
it ever made me in the retail channel that was company owned. And by the way, I knew the president. And I didn't mention it to the president because I didn't want to make him feel bad. But in many ways, he thought that his service was phenomenal. The trainer, because I interacted with the trainer, thought that the service was phenomenal. But the reality was that not only I, but many other people felt that that brand had lost its way, not on product, but on extraordinary customer experiences. They no longer had them. And as a result, over the years, that brand's volume has declined. Now they're on the comeback trail, and I'm cheering for them. And I may actually trust them enough because I've always been loyal to go into their own stores. And I'm praying. I'm praying for that brand because I love it, but it never had the complete package. And so I had to be loyal to some other channel because the brand didn't live up to the expectations. They had the product. I loved it. I still love the product. Their company-owned channels were really, really poor. And they know it, by the way. That's one thing that I respect about them. And now they're on the comeback trail because they fixed it. So that's, to me, a very interesting Tiffany story that you heard recently. And I would love for you to share it and examine the dynamics of trust versus loyalty, etc.
So in your case, Milton, you are loyal to the brand solely because you love the product, but you're not loyal to, let's say, the destination, the store, e-com, what have you.
Correct.
You
Perfectly said.
not necessarily trust the retailer from whom you're buying, but you're loyal to them because the service is better than what you would get in the branded store.
Right, like pick your poison, okay? Now, the other retailer, I have to give them credit, right? They're good, the multi-brand retailer, Saks. They're not optimal, but they're really good compared to, and since I have to go somewhere to buy the product I love most, I just pick the best option that I can find. And then I pray as I enter the store.
Fair enough. So this is a story that I heard the other day from a colleague, and I was so blown away by this story because when we talked about the discussion we wanted to have today around trust and loyalty, this was the perfect example that shows you have to have it all. We've talked in previous podcasts about the fact that a lot of times extraordinary customer experiences come from missed opportunities, from recoveries, great recoveries. So this gentleman had sold a $30,000 engagement ring to a client. He had planned to ask his girlfriend to become his fiance, to be his wife, on a Friday. The ring was being sized throughout the week leading up to Friday. Therefore, UPS needed to pick it up, and it needed to be delivered to the store for him to pick it up on that Thursday. Turns out, not necessarily the brand's fault, but UPS was not going to have it delivered in time for the gentleman to propose to his girlfriend. Well, that's not his problem. That's the brand's problem to figure this out. Clearly, the associate was very distraught, trying to identify what a solution could possibly be. You cannot just tell this guy, oh, I'm sorry, pick another Friday. This is a life-changing event. What he did is he immediately thought, how can I earn his trust? How can I ensure that this actually takes place for this client and blow him away? What they did is identified a ring that was very similar, yet it was a higher price point. Not too much higher, but higher than what he had originally spent. The associate went to his manager and I said, I think it's worth providing this ring to our client so that he can propose. This can be a great opportunity for us to just really create a loyal client for life. That's exactly what he did. He drove to another store, picked up the ring himself, brought it back to give it to the client. They also went to the restaurant where the gentleman was planning to propose. They took care of dinner. They made sure that champagne was brought. They made sure that every detail of their night together, this very special event, was done to perfection. Of course, perfectly, she said yes. And what that did is created a very strong, trusted relationship between the client, who ultimately, by the way, ended up buying the more expensive ring versus the original ring that he had purchased. But it also created loyalty because they eventually came back and purchased their wedding bands, his and hers. So when I heard this story, I thought, oh my goodness, that is the perfect example of, I almost find it's like a cross between a rare and an everyday EC. It's certainly rare in the fact that, God, you don't want that to happen ever. But let's be honest, how many times do we have issues with delivery because there is a third party involved and it's completely out of our control? What's in complete control for us is how we earn trust and how we create loyalty long term by going above and beyond and doing something that is genuinely just human. What can I do to make this right?
And I think what's interesting is we don't know the referral impact,
Smart.
right? Because you're going to tell that story, people are going to be impressed with Tiffany, and they're going to go to Tiffany with an already built-in level of trust beyond what they had before. And I think that's one of the aspects that I think you and I were talking about offline. That um, if I may not be a Dior customer,
Mhm.
a Saint Laurent customer, but since I know that other people are highly satisfied, people in my tribe are highly satisfied. They love the product. They love a particular store. They maybe love a particular sales associate. I'm also able to have that level of sort of imputed trust. And I may be recommending to people, hey, well, maybe you should try Dior because my cousin Joe or my cousin Mary loves them, and by extension, I do too. So that's where I think trust has a flywheel that builds upon itself once you start to deliver extraordinary customer experiences.
What it also does, Milton, and again, always going back to the human being, is not everyone operates with that type of extraordinary customer experience in mind. Not everyone has that relationship building focus. For the employees and the frontline professionals who do, they make the brand. They make that referral and that recommendation. So yes, the brand is getting the recognition, right? As I'm doing the referral, of course. However, 9 times out of 10, I guarantee that that gentleman also said, "Oh, by the way, you have to go to," and I'll keep him anonymous, so John. You have to go to John
Right, right,
because
right.
John is the one who provided that experience. Yes, it came through Tiffany, of course, and so now I trust the brand for empowering him to create this extraordinary experience for me, but John is the one who executed it.
And I think there's so many other interesting topics about trust and loyalty. One of the interesting things I think is that you go to a store, you buy a product you love, you have an extraordinary experience with the sales associate. You come back home, you love wearing it. And because you gave your email address, now you are a spam candidate. And you're getting spammed every week with stuff that is irrelevant. And that just kills the trust and the relationship and the experience, perception of the experience you had with the associate. One of the things we've always told brands is that marketing teams back at headquarters need to relate and understand what the associates are doing to build that trust and loyalty. And their job is to reinforce it, not to destroy it. And I think very often brands, again, you trust the brand, you love the product, you love the associate, and you hate their communication. So those elements also need to come together. But now let's talk about this, okay? Discounts. What do discounts do? And we have the 7 rules of emotionally intelligent luxury. So talk a little bit about discounts, the effect that you perceive on loyalty and trust.
We'll even go back to the supermarket example first, right? You're joining Publix loyalty program for the discount, for the points. You are joining, let's put it into hospitality. You're joining Marriott Bonvoy. You're joining any of those loyalty programs. Why? Because you
Neiman
get
Marcus, yeah, yeah.
Neiman Marcus, right? You join Neiman Marcus, you join Saks, you're getting some sort of discount or a perk in some sort of way. When you look at the brands that do not discount and do not have loyalty programs, right? Let's think about Hermes. There is no discount, there is no loyalty program because consumers are just loyal. Same applies to Louis Vuitton. Never discount, ever. And it creates a sense of very strong trust and loyalty in the client because they understand the value of the product. The moment that you discount, the client, the customer, no longer sees your value. You are now training your customer to solely buy on discount. Well, if it's going down, 40%, then it's going to eventually drop to 60, right? Think of the Bed Bath and Beyond example. They literally trained their customer to wait and expect for a 20% discount every single time they purchase. I'm one of those people. I only bought my Neutrogena product from Bed Bath & Beyond, and I would wait until I would receive that 20% off discount. You're training your customer to see you as not valuable. Yes, I'm still spending money there because I want the product, but I don't need you. I'm utilizing you as a means to get what I need at a discounted rate. It completely changes the emotional connection that a customer has to the brand as soon as you create a discounted opportunity.
So let me add some irony to it, right? So I buy the brand only when it's on discount, and I get the sales associate, as I like to say, to be an unindicted co-conspirator because every time I go, you're going to call me whenever there's a sale, right? And the sales associate, not wanting to, wanting to build a relationship, let's say, goes every time. So guess what happens? The brand is losing, right? I now trust the sales associate to call me when I can be bribed to get my discount, and I will buy. But the margin, the profit effect of that, the erosion, and also the level of trust, because I was asking people the other day, sort of to switch topics. So you just bought a Tesla for $75,000, and a day later, Elon Musk drops the prices by 20 to 30%.
Mhm.
You lost money. So my trust in Tesla, even though I loved Elon Musk, that didn't happen to me, but it did happen to a friend of mine.
Same.
He loved Elon Musk. He loved the product. He thought he was the coolest guy in the world in the neighborhood because he had a Tesla. And then the price drops. He feels like an absolute fool. He loses trust. And you probably now have lost his loyalty and his referrals for life. So
And thinking about the luxury brands, right? We are the Luxury Institute. We love luxury. We love our luxury brands. What I don't love is when brands completely devalue themselves and create an experience where we are now no longer exclusive. And not that you need to exclude yourself from everyone. That's not what I mean. You should have product that is at a price point that does create aspiration, that does create, new younger buyers, of course. But for Bottega Veneta to open a discount outlet, that completely devalues the brand in my mind, because now it's open to everyone. It is no longer aspirational. I no longer even really am interested in the product. Well, I'll just keep waiting for it to drop. Same thing has happened on Farfetch. All of these luxury brands are selling through Farfetch, and it's 60, 70 sometimes percent off.
but
I'm never,
notice, Katie, notice that Hermes isn't selling on there,
of course not.
right? There are a
Absolutely.
lot of brands that are saying, no, we're going direct. So to your point, yes, you also made me think a little bit about when a brand discounts, they're sending a signal that I am not who you thought I am as a brand, as a product, and you can expect the product to not be as valuable in the future. Whereas with a Vuitton, with an Hermes, those are investment products, and people wonder, okay, is it the aesthetic? Is it the emotion? Yeah, and it's also your pocketbook, because the rational side of that product is that it is likely to appreciate in value, just like a lot of beautiful jewelry products like Cartier or a Rolex watch. The trust and loyalty is not only emotional, but economic. And that is a super powerful cocktail for a luxury brand.
Now, I think going back to, if we're continuing trust and loyalty, for those who do want to shop on discount, and I don't know anyone who doesn't want a discount. However, there is a certain sense of loyalty because I am getting the discount. But the level of trust, I don't believe is necessarily there.
Interesting. Interesting. Yes.
However, if you look at it, so again, I equate that to the supermarket example versus the bank example. The bank, I trust them, but I don't necessarily want to be loyal. The supermarket, I'm loyal. I don't always necessarily trust them because I'm interchangeable unless I'm Trader Joe's, of course. However, for luxury, for the discounted luxury brands or just discounted brands in general, how do they even create extraordinary customer experiences except when it's through the associate, right? If I go in and yes, I am receiving that experience directly from the associate, but I don't necessarily equate it to the brand. Whereas when you look at it from the Hermes point of view, the Brunello Cucinellis of the world, the Aman point of view, they create loyalty because they are delivering extraordinary customer experiences, because they are not discounting, because they are continuously going above and beyond. So it's two completely different wavelengths of how they're approaching customers, how they're maintaining customers, how they're building trust, they're building loyalty, and it's all through providing extraordinary customer experiences.
Yes, and so it's interesting to see the different dynamics between trust and loyalty, and what drives that trust and what drives that loyalty, and how many variants there are. You can have trust, but really no loyalty. You can have loyalty, but not a lot of trust. You can have both. You can lose both, and that's when the client walks away. And there's probably many different gradients in between. So it's really hard to be a luxury brand, Katie, if you want to build trust with loyalty. It's a tall order, right? And so tell us a little bit about what it takes then. How do I get my trust and loyalty act together?
You have to have it all. You have to deliver extraordinary products and services. You have to provide extraordinary experiences. You have to have the right engagement and the right people to create that experience, whether they're in store or you're online, you're on the chat, you're on the phone, it does not matter. You have to create that level of engagement. You have to create moments of joy and continuously earn that trust and loyalty. I think that's something to hone in on is trust and loyalty are not stagnant. They're like change. It's just a constant, right? It is constantly evolving. It's constantly being evaluated, by the way, on both parties, by both parties, all
Yes,
parties.
yes.
And the moment that you stop trying or being proactive to earn that trust, the trust goes down a little bit at a time. The loyalty goes down a little bit at a time. So when we utilize, and refer to brands like Aman or Hermes or Brunello Cucinelli or Ritz-Carlton, they are constantly working to earn your trust and earn your loyalty by doing the extraordinary things like having the best products and services, really understanding who their customer is, who their client is, providing opportunities that are completely unmatched against anyone else. The other thing to think about is they are their own selves, right? They're not trying to copy anyone
They're
else.
authentic.
Are
Yes, absolutely.
right. Everyone uses the word authentic, but no one actually is authentic unless they truly are authentic. They are not copying anyone. They are genuinely in their own lane. They follow no one. When you think about brands that are actually doing it, those are the brands where we're seeing numbers rise continuously. Milton, you mentioned before that Hermes was what, up 29%,
27%, while everybody
27%,
else was
right?
maybe
Think
slight
about that.
growth or down. I mean, I was asking you, Katie, like, do they just defy gravity?
What's in the
And
water?
well, exactly, what is in the water? You have to ask yourself. And the interesting thing is that you can dissect the critical elements, right, one by one by one, but the sum of those elements is it's well, the sum of the brand is so much greater than the sum of the part than the parts that you could try to dissect it and try to build it, but the level of brand trust and the level of loyalty that MS inspires in their customers is so unparalleled that it probably can't be replicated. And I think one of the elements is that instead of Hermes thinking, how can my customers be loyal to me? What people in marketing call brand loyalty, they're thinking, how can I be loyal to my customers? And I
Totally.
think that's one of the elements that I see.
That's
So,
exactly right. I mean, we even use the example of Aman. Their frontline professionals are advised, asked, empowered demanded to spend 2, 3, 4 hours out of their day just engaging with guests, get to know them, understand who they are. So, to that exact point, the brands are focused on being loyal to their client as opposed to asking for loyalty in return. It's
Right.
just a natural progression.
Yes. And I think that the final thing I would say is when you think that you're the sun, you're the brand and you think you're the sun and the customers are the planet, you're living in a galaxy that long ago disappeared because your customer is the sun and you have to be loyal to the customer because you're the planet. And by the way, there's a lot of planets that compete with you for the attention of the sun. And I think brands don't quite get that yet, but the extraordinary ones, the prolific brands like Hermes, Montclair, Brunello, Ritz-Carlton, Aman, they totally get it. And I really admire the ability to execute that skill because it's so difficult.
I also love this article. So thanks for finding it, Milton. It was a really great way to spark this conversation today and continue to lead us through our series on extraordinary customer experiences. So, as we come to a close, we want to thank you as always for listening. We had a lot to share today. So, we would love your comments, your thoughts on today's discussion. We also invite you to share your extraordinary customer experiences with us. Whether you have delivered, received, or witnessed, you can contact us in the comments or simply reach out at luxuryinstitute.com. And Milton, I'll give you the last word.
Well, Katie, we say that life is probably a 50-50 proposition, half luck, half skill. Can't control the luck part, but you can definitely control the skill. So we wish you good luck and extraordinary skill. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.